The morning sun was shining bright over the Seoul military base when the sky suddenly turned dark. Commander Hyun-woo was drinking his coffee in the command center. When alarms started ringing everywhere, soldiers ran in all directions as a massive shadow covered the entire base above them. A ship bigger than 10 football stadiums floated in the air. The metal surface was black and smooth with strange blue lights running across it like lightning. Nobody on Earth had ever seen anything like it. The ship made no sound as it slowly came down to land on the main training field. Captain So-min rushed into the command center, her face pale with worry. Sir, what should we do? She asked Commander Hyun-woo. He put down his coffee cup and looked at the screen showing the alien ship. This is what we trained for, he said calmly. Get all teams ready, but nobody shoots unless I give the order. Outside, soldiers were taking positions behind barriers and vehicles. Lieutenant Yoon-ah was coordinating the defensive positions while Sergeant Woo Jin made sure all weapons were loaded and ready. The base had over 3,000 soldiers, but everyone felt small looking at the massive alien ship. Ji-hai from the intelligence unit was already trying to scan the ship with every device they had. Sir, she called out through her radio, the ship has some kind of shield around it. Our sensors cannot read what is inside, but the energy readings are off the charts. This technology is hundreds of years ahead of ours. The ship finally touched the ground with a soft thud that could be felt through the entire base. Steam came out from the bottom as massive doors began to open. The sound was like metal grinding against metal. Everyone held their breath, waiting to see what would come out. First came the sound of heavy footsteps, then shadows appeared in the doorway. The beings that stepped out were like nothing from Earth movies or books. They stood 8 feet tall with thick purple skin that looked like armor. Their bodies were wide and muscular with 4 arms instead of 2 each. Alien soldier wore black uniforms with silver symbols that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Their faces were roughly human-shaped, but with larger eyes and no nose. Just 2 holes for breathing. Most frightening of all were their hands. Each finger ended in sharp claws that could easily tear through metal. The leader of the aliens was even bigger than the others, standing almost 9 feet tall with scars covering his face and arms. He looked around the base with eyes that showed no emotion, then began walking toward the command center. His footsteps left deep marks in the concrete. Commander Hyun-woo ordered his men to lower their weapons. We are not here to fight, he announced over the radio. We are here to listen and learn. He walked out of the command center, followed by Captain So-min, Lieutenant Yoon-ah, and 12 of his best soldiers, including Tae-ho, the strongest fighter in the unit. The alien leader stopped about 10 feet away from the humans and began to speak. His voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together, but somehow the humans could understand every word. We are the Vortex soldiers of the Galactic Federation, the alien leader said. I am General Krex, commander of the 47th Assault Division. We have come to your planet Earth because we heard you have warriors. Captain So-min stepped forward slightly. We have soldiers, yes, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. We protect our planet and our people. General Krex looked at her and started laughing. The sound was horrible, like metal scraping against stone. The other alien soldiers joined in, their laughter echoing across the base. You call these warriors, he said, pointing at the human soldiers with one of his 4 arms. Look at you, the alien general continued. You are small, weak, fragile. How can beings like you call yourselves fighters? Your strongest soldier probably weighs less than our youngest child. The other aliens laughed even harder at this comment. Commander Hyun-woo felt anger rising in his chest, but kept his face calm. What do you want from us? He asked. The Galactic Federation is always looking for new planets to join our alliance, General Krex explained, but we only accept worlds with strong warriors. We fight many battles across the galaxy against dangerous enemies. We need soldiers who can survive. And when the alien general walked in a circle around the humans, studying them like animals in a zoo. Your planet has resources. We need, the alien continued, but resources are worthless without warriors to protect them. So we must test your strength. Tae-ho, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward slightly. Sir, he said to Commander Hyun-woo, let me show them what humans can do. Tae-ho was known throughout the entire military as the strongest soldier in Korea. He had won every fighting competition he entered and could break concrete blocks with his bare hands. General Krex noticed Tae-ho stepping forward and grinned, showing teeth that were sharp like knives. This one has courage, the alien said. But courage without strength is just stupidity. He pointed one of his clawed fingers at Taeho. This small one, do you think you can fight me? Taeho looked up at the massive alien. Without fear, I have fought strong opponents before, he said. I am ready to prove what humans can do. The other human soldiers felt a mix of pride and worry. They believed in Taeho, but the alien was so much bigger. The alien soldiers formed a large circle on the training field. The humans also gathered around, but kept more distance. They had never seen their friend fight an opponent like this. Yehai was recording everything on her tablet. While Dongmin from Special Forces watched nervously, General Krex began removing his uniform jacket, revealing muscles that looked like steel cables. His forearms moved independently as he stretched and prepared for the fight. This will be quick, he announced. Your champion will be unconscious in seconds. Taeho also prepared for battle. He took off his jacket and began stretching his muscles. The difference in size was shocking. The alien was almost twice as tall and probably 3 times as heavy, but Taeho had trained his whole life for moments like this. The rules are simple, General Krex explained. No weapons, just hand-to-hand combat. The fight continues until one cannot continue. He cracked his knuckles on all 4 hands. The sound was like tree branches breaking. Commander Hyun-woo wanted to stop the fight, but knew they had no choice. If Earth wanted to join the galactic community, they had to prove they belonged. The other soldiers watched with nervous excitement, knowing their planet's future might depend on the next few minutes. Both fighters moved to the center of the circle. Taeho looked tiny next to the alien giant, but his eyes showed no fear. General Krex looked down at the human with amusement, already planning how quickly he would end this pathetic challenge. The tension in the air was thick as both sides prepared for a fight that would change everything. The moment General Krex raised his first massive fist, everyone knew the fight had begun. Taeho stood ready in his fighting stance, the same position that had helped him win 100 battles before. The human soldiers held their breath while the alien warriors continued laughing and making jokes about how quickly their general would crush the tiny human. Time seemed to slow down as the alien general's forearms moved like a deadly machine. His first punch came from the right, aimed directly at Taeho's chest. The speed was incredible, much faster than any human could move. Taeho tried to dodge, but the alien's reach was too long and his movements too quick. The punch connected with a sound like thunder hitting a mountain. Taeho felt his ribs crack as the massive fist drove into his body, lifting him completely off the ground. His feet left the concrete as he flew backward through the air. The pain was unlike anything he had ever experienced in all his years of fighting. But General Krex was not finished. The alien had planned this attack perfectly. His second punch came immediately after the first, this time aimed at Taeho's head while the human was still flying through the air, helpless to defend himself. The alien's timing was perfect, like a predator that had hunted thousands of times before. The second punch hit Taeho's skull with the force of a sledgehammer against an egg. The sound was horrible, a wet cracking noise that made even the toughest soldiers turn away. Taeho's body changed direction in mid-air, spinning like a broken doll before crashing to the ground 20 feet away from where he had been standing. The entire fight had lasted exactly 2 seconds from the first punch to Taeho hitting the ground. Barely any time had passed at all. The human soldiers stood in complete shock, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Their strongest fighter, their champion, had been destroyed so easily it seemed impossible. Captain So-min was the first to react. She ran toward Taeho's motionless body, her heart pounding with fear. The medics were already rushing across the field with their equipment, but everyone could see how badly hurt he was. Blood was coming from his head and he was not moving at all. Dr. Park, the head medic, reached Taeho first and immediately began checking his vital signs. His skull is fractured in multiple places, he announced grimly. He has internal bleeding and possible brain damage. We need to get him to the hospital immediately. The medical team worked quickly, loading Taeho onto a stretcher. Meanwhile, General Krex stood in the center of the circle, looking at the blood on his knuckles. With satisfaction, he wiped Taeho's blood on his uniform and turned to face the remaining human soldiers. Is this truly your best warrior? He asked with mock disappointment. I have fought children who lasted longer than this pathetic display. The other Vortex soldiers cheered and celebrated their generals' easy victory. They began chanting something in their alien language while dancing around the circle. Some of them picked up handfuls of dirt and threw them into the air like they were celebrating a great victory in battle, Commander. Haiyan felt rage building inside. His chest like a fire that wanted to consume everything. His best soldier was probably dying, and these aliens were celebrating like it was some kind of game. He wanted to order his men to attack, but he knew it would only result in more deaths, Lieutenant. Yuna moved closer to her commander and whispered, "Sir, what are our orders now?" The young officer looked scared and confused. Just like everyone else who had watched their champion fall so quickly, should we call for backup from other bases? She asked quietly. The alien general heard her whisper and laughed even louder. "Backup," he repeated mockingly. "You could bring your entire army and the result would be the same. Humans are simply too weak to survive in our galaxy. You are not ready to join." The Galactic Federation General Krex began walking toward his ship, signaling to the other alien soldiers that they were preparing to leave. "We have seen enough," he announced to the humans. "Your species lacks the strength necessary to be useful allies. We will report back to the Federation that Earth should remain isolated until you evolve into something stronger." The aliens began forming up in marching formation, clearly getting ready to return to their ship and leave Earth forever. The humans would be left behind, considered too weak to join the galactic community. Their planet would remain alone in the universe, cut off from advanced technology and alien civilizations. But then something unexpected happened that nobody had predicted. A small voice spoke up from the crowd of human soldiers. "I challenge you," the voice said quietly, but clearly enough for everyone to hear. General Krex stopped walking toward his ship and turned around looking confused. The voice belonged to Private Jinsu, the smallest soldier in the entire unit. He was only 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighed barely 140 pounds. Most people forgot he was even there during meetings because he rarely spoke and always stayed in the background, fixing equipment and helping with technical problems. Jinsu stepped out from behind the other soldiers and walked slowly toward the center of the circle where General Krex was standing. His movements were calm and steady, like someone taking a peaceful walk in the park rather than approaching a deadly alien warrior who had just crushed their strongest fighter. "What did you say?" General Krex asked in disbelief. Bending down to get closer to the tiny human soldier, his voice showed genuine confusion, as if he could not believe what he was hearing. "I said, I challenge you," Jinsu repeated in the same quiet, calm voice that everyone knew so well. The reaction from both sides was immediate and extreme. The alien soldiers burst into the loudest laughter, yet pointing at Jinsu and making jokes about his size in their alien language. Some of them actually fell down from laughing so hard at what they considered the most ridiculous thing they had ever seen. Even some of the human soldiers looked worried and confused. Sergeant Wu Jin moved forward and grabbed Jinsu's arm, trying to pull him back. "Jinsu, what are you doing?" he whispered urgently. "You saw what happened to Taeho. That alien will kill you in one punch." But Jinsu gently removed Wu Jin's hand from his arm and continued walking toward General Krex. His face showed no fear, no anger, no emotion at all, just a strange kind of peace that nobody had ever seen in him before. It was like he had been waiting his whole life for this exact moment. General Krex was laughing so hard that tears were coming from his alien eyes. He gasped between laughs. "You want to fight me? I just destroyed your strongest warrior in 2 seconds. What could you possibly hope to achieve?" The other aliens were now rolling on the ground with laughter. Commander Haiyan stepped forward, trying to stop what seemed like certain suicide for one of his soldiers. "Private Jinsu, stand down," he ordered. "That is a direct command from your superior officer." But Jinsu continued walking and spoke without turning around. "Sir, with all due respect, this is something I have to do," he said calmly. "They need to understand what humans really are." His voice carried a strange confidence that surprised everyone who thought they knew the quiet equipment technician. The circle reformed with Jinsu standing in the center, facing the massive alien general. The size difference was even more shocking than it had been with Taeho. General Krex looked like a giant standing next to a child. The alien was still wiping tears from his eyes and trying to control his laughter. "Very well, little human," General Krex said, finally managing to stop laughing. "I will try not to kill you too quickly so your friends can watch you suffer." He flexed all 4 of his massive arms, each one bigger than Jinsu's entire torso. The muscles rippled under his purple skin like steel cables. What nobody knew, not even Jinsu's closest friends, was that the quiet soldier had been born different. His body was not like other humans in ways that medical science could barely understand. His muscle density was 3 times normal. His bone structure was harder than steel, and his reflexes were faster than any computer could measure. The military doctors had discovered his abilities during routine testing years ago, but Jinsu had always asked them to keep the information secret. He wanted to serve as a normal soldier, not be studied like a laboratory experiment. He had hidden his true capabilities his entire military career, waiting for the right moment. Captain So-min noticed something strange as Jinsu prepared to face the alien. His breathing was completely calm and controlled, like someone meditating instead of about to fight for his life. His stance was perfectly balanced, and his eyes showed a focus she had never seen before. The tension in the air was thick as General Krex prepared to finish what he thought would be another easy victory. The aliens had stopped laughing and were now betting among themselves about how far Jinsu's body would fly when their general hit him. The humans watched in horror, knowing they were about to lose another soldier, but Jinsu stood perfectly still in the center of the circle, waiting patiently for the alien to make his move. His calm confidence was starting to make some people wonder if there was more to the quiet soldier than anyone had ever realized. The fight that would change everything was about to begin. The laughter from the Vortex soldiers was so loud it echoed off the buildings around the training field. They pointed at Jinsu with all 4 of their arms, making jokes in their alien language about how tiny he looked standing next to their massive general. Some of them were taking bets on whether Jinsu would survive even one punch. Even among the human soldiers there were worried whispers and concerned looks. Private Kim from communications shook his head and muttered, "This is suicide," while Corporal Lee covered her eyes, not wanting to watch another friend get destroyed. Lieutenant Yuna looked like she wanted to run into the circle and drag Jinsu to safety. Sergeant Wu Jin made one more attempt to stop what seemed like certain death. "Jinsu, please," he called out urgently. "You are a good soldier and a good friend. Do not throw your life away like this. We can find another way to prove ourselves to these aliens." But Jinsu did not turn around or acknowledge the plea. He remained focused on General Krex, who was still wiping tears of laughter from his alien eyes. The massive general looked down at the tiny human like someone might look at an amusing pet that was trying to act tough. "This is not necessary, Commander Hyanwu said, stepping forward and speaking directly to General Krex. "My soldier is brave, but he is not a trained fighter like Taeho was. There is no honor in crushing someone so obviously outmatched." General Krex stopped laughing long enough to respond. "Honor," he said with amusement. "There is no honor in any of this, only the reality of strength versus weakness. Your species is weak, and this little demonstration will prove it once and for all. When I am finished with this tiny soldier, your planet will understand its place in the universe." Jinsu finally spoke, and his voice carried a strange authority that made everyone stop talking. "Sir," he said to Commander Hyanwu, "with all due respect, they need to understand what humans really are, not what they appear to be, but what we truly are underneath the surface." There was something different about Jinsu's voice now. It was still quiet and calm, but there was an underlying power that had never been there before. Captain So-min found herself studying the small soldier more carefully, noticing things she had never seen before. His posture was perfect, like a statue carved by an artist. His breathing was so controlled, it seemed almost supernatural. The way he stood was balanced in a way that suggested years of training that nobody knew about. Most strange of all, his eyes showed no fear whatsoever, just a deep focus that seemed to see everything. What nobody in the crowd knew was that Jinsu had been hiding his true nature his entire life. He had been born with genetic differences that made him unlike any other human on Earth. His muscle fibers were denser than steel cables. His bones were harder than titanium. His nervous system could process information and react faster than any supercomputer. The military doctors had discovered these differences during his recruitment physical examination. Years ago, Dr. Choi, the head of medical research, had run test after test, unable to believe the results. Jinsu's cellular structure was completely unique, like evolution had taken a giant leap forward in creating him. But Jinsu had begged the doctors to keep his abilities secret. He wanted to serve his country as a normal soldier, not spend his life in laboratories being studied like an experiment. He had hidden his true strength his entire military career, using only enough ability to pass normal fitness tests. So over the years, Jinsu had watched his fellow soldiers train and fight. He had learned their techniques and fighting styles while secretly developing his own methods. He had practiced in private, turning his natural gifts into deadly skills that nobody had ever seen. General Krex finished stretching his 4 massive arms and cracked his knuckles with sounds like tree branches breaking. "Very well, little human," he said with fake kindness. "I will try to make this quick and painless. Your death will at least serve the purpose of showing your species how far they have to evolve." The alien general began moving toward Jinsu with slow, deliberate steps, like a predator approaching cornered prey. His 4 arms swayed at his sides, ready to strike with devastating force. The purple muscles under his skin rippled with each movement, showing the incredible power contained in his alien body. But as Krex approached, something unexpected happened. Jinsu's entire demeanor changed. The quiet, humble soldier disappeared and was replaced by someone completely different. His muscles seemed to become more defined. His stance shifted into something that looked almost like a martial arts form. Nobody recognized Captain So. Min blinked and looked again, certain her eyes were playing tricks on her. Jinsu suddenly looked taller, stronger, more dangerous. It was like watching a harmless house cat transform into a tiger. The change was subtle but unmistakable to anyone paying close attention. Hai, who had been recording everything on her tablet, noticed the change too and began focusing her camera on Jinsu instead of the alien general. Something about the small soldier's transformation made her scientific mind buzz with curiosity. What exactly was she about to witness? The other Vortex soldiers had stopped laughing and were now watching more carefully. Their general was still approaching with confidence, but some of the aliens were beginning to sense that something was not quite right. The humans they had been dismissing as weak seemed to have hidden depths. Lieutenant Yuna found herself holding her breath as she watched Jinsu prepare for what everyone assumed would be his death. But there was something about his movements that reminded her of the martial arts masters she had seen in ancient films. Fluid, graceful, and somehow deadly. Sergeant Urjin noticed it too and whispered to the soldier next to him, "Have you ever seen Jinsu move like that before?" The other soldier shook his head, looking confused. They had served with Jinsu for 3 years but had never seen him display anything like this level of physical confidence. Commander Haiyan Wu was studying both fighters carefully. His tactical mind was trying to process what he was seeing. The alien general was obviously powerful and had already proven his deadly capabilities, but Jinsu was displaying signs of training and ability that had somehow remained completely hidden. Dr. Park, who was still treating Taeho in the medical area, looked up from his patient long enough to see Jinsu in the circle, even from a distance. He could tell something was different about the small soldier. The way he held himself suggested capabilities that defied everything the doctor thought he knew about human limitations. General Krex was now close enough to strike. He raised his first massive fist, preparing to end what he considered a pathetic joke. The other aliens resumed their betting, convinced they were about to see another human crushed in seconds. The humans watched in terrified fascination, but Jinsu remained perfectly calm, waiting with the patience of someone who had trained for this moment his entire life. His secret was about to be revealed not just to the aliens but to his own fellow soldiers, who had never suspected that their quiet friend possessed abilities that bordered on the supernatural. The circle of spectators grew completely silent as General Krex prepared to strike. The moment that would change everything was finally at hand. Jinsu took one deep breath and prepared to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of when they stopped hiding their potential. The transformation was complete. The humble equipment technician was gone, replaced by something that looked human but moved with capabilities that seemed to belong to another species entirely. As General Krex's fist began to descend, Jinsu prepared to reveal the secret he had kept hidden for his entire military career. What happened next would shock both species and change the course of Earth's relationship with the galaxy forever. The fight that everyone expected to last 2 seconds was about to become something completely different. General Krex's massive fist came down toward Jinsu's head with the force of a falling boulder. The alien had put all his strength behind the punch, confident that this pathetic human would be destroyed even more easily than the previous fighter. Everyone watching expected to see Jinsu's body flying through the air in the next second, but The punch never connected. Time seemed to freeze as Jinsu moved with speed that defied human limitations. He stepped slightly to his left, just enough to let the massive fist pass harmlessly through the air where his head had been a split second before. The movement was so smooth and precise it looked almost like dancing. Before General Krex could react, Jinsu reached up and grabbed the alien's thick wrist with both of his small hands. The contrast was shocking. The tiny human fingers wrapped around the massive alien arm like a child trying to hold a tree branch. But what happened next made everyone question everything they thought they knew about physics. The sound of cracking bones filled the air as Jinsu's grip tightened. General Krex's wrist bones, which were harder than steel and had never been injured in hundreds of battles, began to fracture under pressure that should have been impossible for human hands to generate. The alien general screamed in pain and shock. Impossible, Krex shouted, his voice filled with disbelief and agony. No human can grip that hard. Your species is weak. He tried to pull his arm away, but Jinsu's hold was like being trapped in a steel vise. The small human's fingers had somehow become unbreakable. The other Vorthok soldiers stopped cheering and stared in confusion. Their general, who had never shown weakness in battle, was being hurt by a creature they considered barely worthy of notice. Some of them began moving closer to the circle, uncertain whether they should intervene. Jinsu's face remained completely calm as he held the struggling alien's wrist. His voice was quiet, but everyone could hear him clearly. You underestimated us, he said simply. That was your first mistake. Then, with one fluid motion that seemed to defy the laws of physics, Jinsu twisted his entire body and threw the 8-foot alien over his shoulder. The throw was perfect, combining leverage, technique, and strength in a way that made the impossible look effortless. General Krex, who weighed nearly 400 pounds, flew through the air like he was made of paper. His massive body spun twice before crashing into the concrete with an impact that shook the entire training field. The sound was like a small earthquake. Concrete cracked and dust flew everywhere. From where the alien general's body hit the ground, the impact was so hard that windows in nearby buildings rattled and car alarms began going off throughout the base. Everyone felt the vibration through their feet. General Krex lay on the broken concrete, gasping and holding his fractured wrist. His purple skin had turned darker around the injury, and strange blue blood was seeping through his fingers. The mighty warrior, who had seemed unstoppable just moments before, was struggling to stand up. The silence that followed was complete. Nobody moved or spoke or even seemed to breathe. The Vorthok soldiers stared at their fallen general with expressions of shock and confusion. They had never seen him injured, let alone thrown around like a child's toy. The human soldiers were equally stunned. Captain So Min felt her mouth hanging open as she tried to process what she had just witnessed. Sergeant Wu Jin rubbed his eyes, thinking he must be hallucinating. Lieutenant Yuna actually took a step backward as if she was afraid of her own fellow soldier. How, General Krex demanded as he finally managed to get back on his feet. How is this possible? No human should have that kind of strength. Your species is supposed to be weak, fragile, limited. He flexed his 3 uninjured arms, preparing to attack again, but now there was fear in his alien eyes. Jinsu simply stood in the center of the circle, waiting patiently for the next attack. His breathing was still completely normal, as if throwing a 400-pound alien warrior had required no effort at all. You keep saying what humans are supposed to be, he replied calmly, but you never asked what we actually are. The alien general lunged forward with desperate fury, using all 3 of his remaining good arms in a wild, coordinated attack. His movements were faster and more vicious than before, driven by pain, anger, and the first fear he had felt in decades of warfare. But Jinsu was ready for everything as the first punch came from the left. Jinsu ducked under it so smoothly he seemed to flow like water. The second punch, aimed at his chest, was deflected by a simple arm movement that redirected the massive fist harmlessly to the side. The third punch never had a chance to land because Jinsu had already stepped inside the alien's reach, moving with precision that looked almost supernatural. Jinsu caught General Krex's second arm and twisted it sharply. The cracking sound of breaking bones filled the air again as another wrist snapped under pressure that the alien's advanced physiology could not withstand. Krex screamed again, this time in pure agony as his second arm became useless. His confident attack had been turned into another devastating injury in less than 3 seconds. The mighty general was being systematically dismantled by someone half his size. The Watching Vortex soldiers began to back away from the circle for the first time since arriving on Earth. They looked genuinely frightened. Their greatest warrior was being defeated by what they had considered the weakest species in the galaxy. Some of them were speaking rapidly in their alien language, clearly debating whether to Fleet Commander Haiyan Wu found his voice first among the humans. "How is this possible?" he whispered to Captain So Min, who was standing next to him staring at Jin Su like she had never seen him before. "We have served with him for 3 years. How did we never know?" Ji Hai was still recording everything, but her hands were shaking as she tried to keep the camera steady. "This is impossible," she muttered. Her scientific mind was struggling to accept what her eyes were showing her. The laws of physics seemed to be breaking down in front of her. Dr. Park had stopped treating Taeho and was watching the fight with professional fascination. The medical part of his brain was trying to calculate how much force would be required to break alien bones that were supposedly stronger than steel. The numbers did not make sense. General Krex was now attacking with pure desperation. His remaining 2 arms moved in wild, unpredictable patterns as he tried to land at least one hit on the small human, but Jin Su anticipated every move, dodging and countering with an ease that made the alien's attacks look clumsy and slow. Each time Krex threw a punch, Jin Su was already somewhere else. Each time the alien tried to grab him, Jin Su slipped away like smoke. And whenever Jin Su chose to counterattack, the results were devastating. Another joint injured, another bone cracked, another scream of pain from the supposedly superior warrior. The tide of battle had completely reversed. The humans who had been watching in terror were now staring in amazement, while the aliens who had been laughing and celebrating were backing away in fear. The small quiet soldier who nobody had ever noticed was systematically destroying their champion. Lieutenant Yun leaned over to Sergeant Wu Jin and whispered, "Who is he really? We thought we knew Jin Su, but this person fighting out there is someone completely different." The sergeant could only shake his head in bewilderment. Tae-ho, who was conscious again despite his injuries, managed to lift his head enough to see the fight. His broken face showed amazement and pride as he watched his fellow soldier accomplish what he had failed to do. "Brother," he whispered too quietly for anyone else to hear, "show them what we really are." The fight was no longer a contest, it had become a demonstration. Jin Su was showing both species that human potential went far beyond what anyone had imagined. The quiet soldier who had spent years hiding his abilities was finally revealing the truth about what humans could become. General Krex was running out of options. His confidence was gone, his superior attitude had evaporated, and his physical advantages were proving meaningless against an opponent who seemed to have no limitations. The alien warrior was about to learn that underestimating humans was a fatal mistake. As Jin Su prepared for his final move, the watching crowd realized they were witnessing something that would be remembered forever, the moment when humanity proved it belonged among the stars, not as the weakest species, but potentially as the strongest. General Krex was now fighting like a wounded animal, using every ounce of his remaining strength and desperate attacks that grew wilder and more unpredictable with each passing second. His 2 unbroken arms swung frantically through the air as he tried to land at least one devastating blow on the small human who had become his nightmare. But Jin Su had learned everything about the aliens' fighting style during their brief battle. Every movement Krex made was predicted and countered before it could become dangerous. The human soldier moved like he could see the future, dancing around attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. The other Vortex soldiers watched in growing horror as their invincible general continued to fail against an opponent they had dismissed as worthless. Some of them were now speaking in urgent whispers, debating whether they should intervene to save their leader's life. Others seemed paralyzed by the impossibility of what they were witnessing. Sweat was pouring down General Krex's alien face, mixing with the blue blood from his injuries. His breathing had become labored and desperate, while Jin Su still looked like he had just started warming up. The contrast between the two fighters was becoming more obvious with every passing moment. "You cannot keep dodging forever," Krex gasped between attacks, his voice showing exhaustion and pain. "Eventually you will make a mistake, and when you do, I will crush you like the insect you are." But even as he spoke the words, his attacks were becoming slower and less coordinated. Jin Su did not respond verbally, but his actions spoke louder than any words could have. As Krex launched what he intended to be his final devastating assault, Jin Su did something That shocked everyone watching. Instead of dodging or deflecting the attack, he stepped directly into it. The move seemed like suicide. General Krex's massive fist was coming straight at Jinsu's chest with enough force to punch through a concrete wall, but at the last possible second Jin-Su twisted slightly and drove his own fist upward in a precise counterattack that caught the alien completely off guard. Jin-Su's punch connected with General Krex's throat, hitting exactly the right spot. To cut off the alien's air supply, the impact was surgical in its precision targeting, the one vulnerable point that could disable even a warrior of Krex's size and strength. Instantly, General Krex's eyes went wide with shock and terror as he realized he could not breathe. His hands instinctively went to his throat as he tried to gasp for air that would not come. The mighty alien warrior who had terrorized countless planets was choking like his worst enemy had just crushed his windpipe. The watching soldiers, both human and alien, knew immediately that the fight had reached its turning point. General Krex was no longer attacking, he was struggling just to survive as his body fought for oxygen that his damaged throat could not provide. But Jin-Su was not finished. While the alien general gasped and choked, Jin-Su stepped even closer and reached up with both hands toward Krex's massive head. The movement was deliberate and calm, like someone reaching for an object on a high shelf rather than preparing to end a life. Captain So-min realized what was about to happen and felt her stomach turn with a mixture of horror and fascination. She wanted to look away, but found herself unable to stop watching as Jin-Su's small hands positioned themselves on either side of the alien's skull. "This is for underestimating Earth," Jin-Su said quietly, his voice carrying clearly across the silent training field. His words were not spoken in anger or hatred, but with the calm certainty of someone delivering justice. What happened next would be talked about for generations throughout the galaxy. Jin-Su's hands began to squeeze, and everyone could hear the sound of his own bones creaking under the tremendous strain he was putting on his human body. The muscles in his arms stood out like steel cables as he applied pressure that should have been impossible. The sound that came from General Krex's skull was horrible, like a watermelon being slowly crushed in a vice mixed with the aliens' desperate attempts to breathe. It created a nightmare symphony that made even the toughest soldiers feel sick to their stomachs. Commander Hyan Wu found himself gripping the fence rail so hard his knuckles were white as he watched his quiet soldier do something that defied every law of biology. He knew the human body simply was not designed to generate that kind of crushing force yet. Jin-Su was doing it anyway. The Vortex soldiers were now backing away in genuine terror. Some of them had begun running toward their ship, unable to watch their general being destroyed by what they had considered an inferior life form. Their entire understanding of the universe was crashing down around them. Dr. Park was studying Jin-Su's technique with professional fascination, even as he felt horrified by what he was witnessing. The medical part of his mind was calculating the pounds per square inch of pressure required to crush an alien skull designed to withstand combat damage. Lieutenant Yoon had covered her mouth with both hands, but could not look away as she watched Jin-Su methodically apply pressure to General Krex's head. The alien's purple skin was beginning to darken and change color under the incredible stress. Taeho, despite his serious injuries, managed to smile as he watched from the medical stretcher. His fellow soldier was accomplishing what he had failed to do, avenging the honor of humanity and proving that humans deserved respect throughout the galaxy. The pressure continued building as Jin-Su's grip tightened with mechanical precision. General Krex's struggles were becoming weaker as his oxygen-deprived brain began to shut down. His forearms, which had seemed so threatening just minutes before, now hung limply at his side. Sergeant Wu Jin whispered a prayer as he watched his friend cross a line that could never be uncrossed. Jin-Su, the quiet equipment technician who helped everyone with their problems, was methodically killing an alien general with nothing but the strength of his bare hands. The end came suddenly after what felt like an eternity, but had actually been less than 10 seconds. General Krex's skull finally gave way under pressure that his advanced alien physiology could not withstand. The cracking sound was final and definitive, like a tree branch breaking in a storm. General Krex's massive body went limp and collapsed to the broken concrete, his alien eyes staring sightlessly at the sky. The mighty warrior who had conquered planets and terrorized civilizations was dead killed by a human soldier who weighed less than half what he did. Jin Su released his grip and stepped back, looking down at the body of his fallen opponent. His breathing was still completely normal, as if the fight had required no significant effort. His hands showed no visible damage despite having just crushed an alien skull designed to withstand battlefield impacts. The silence that followed was absolute. Nobody moved or spoke or even seemed to breathe. The training field had become a monument to the moment when humanity proved it was not the weakest species in the galaxy, but potentially the most dangerous. Captain So Min stared at Jin Su like she was seeing him for the first time in 3 years of service together. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Really, who are you?" Her question spoke for everyone watching. Jin Su looked at his commanding officers and fellow soldiers, all of whom were staring at him with mixtures of awe, fear, and confusion. "I am still the same person," he said quietly. "I'm still your friend, still your fellow soldier. I'm still human." But as he stood over the body of the alien general, everyone knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The quiet soldier who had spent years hiding his abilities had just changed the course of human history with his bare hands. The galaxy would never underestimate Earth again. The remaining Vorthik soldiers stood frozen in terror, staring at the body of their fallen general and the small human who had killed him with nothing but his bare hands. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours before the aliens began to understand that their entire view of the universe had just been shattered. One by one, the massive alien warriors began to kneel, placing their heads against the concrete in the universal gesture of surrender and respect, their forearms stretched out in front of them as they assumed the position that their culture reserved for acknowledging a superior opponent. A alien, who appeared to be the second in command, was the first to speak. His voice shook with fear and amazement as he addressed Jin Su in broken English. "Forgive us, mighty human warrior," he said without lifting his head from the ground. "We did not know, we did not understand the true nature of your species." Commander Hyun Woo stepped forward, still trying to process everything he had witnessed in the past few minutes. "Rise," he said to the kneeling aliens, his voice carrying new authority. "We do not seek your submission, we seek your respect. Treat us as equals, and we will do the same for you." Aliens slowly rose to their feet, but they kept their heads bowed and their eyes focused on the ground rather than looking directly at Jin Su. It was clear that their entire understanding of humanity had been completely transformed in the space of a single fight. Jin Su walked over to where the medical team was still working on Taeho, who was now conscious and trying to sit up, despite his serious injuries. "Thank you, Brother Taeho," whispered, grabbing Jin Su's hand with surprising strength. "You saved our honor, you saved our planet." Jin Su squeezed his friend's hand gently and smiled the same quiet smile that everyone remembered from before the fight. "We are all soldiers here," he said calmly. "We protect each other. That is what we do. That has not changed, and it never will." Captain So Min approached Jin Su cautiously, still trying to reconcile the person she thought she knew with the warrior she had just watched destroy an alien general. "How long have you been hiding this?" she asked quietly. "How long have you had these abilities?" Jin Su looked at his commanding officer and fellow soldiers who were all waiting for an answer. "I was born different," he explained simply. "The doctors discovered it during my recruitment physical, but I asked them to keep it secret. I wanted to serve as a normal soldier and not spend my life being studied in laboratories." Dr. Park nodded from where he was treating Taeho. "I remember now," he said suddenly, "the anomalous test results from 3 years ago, the bone density measurements that we thought were equipment errors, the muscle fiber samples that showed impossible characteristics. We thought our machines were broken." The implications of Jin Su's revelation were staggering. If one human could possess such incredible abilities hidden beneath a normal appearance, then what other secrets might humanity be hiding from itself? Lieutenant Yuna voiced what everyone was thinking. "Are there others like you?" Jin Su shrugged honestly. "I do not know," he admitted. "I have always been alone in this. My parents died when I was young, and I never met anyone else with similar abilities. But human genetics are complex. Who knows what other variations might exist?" The Vorthak second in command stepped forward hesitantly. "Great human warrior," he said carefully, "may I ask what message you wish us to take back to the Galactic Federation? How should we report what we have witnessed here today?" Before Jin Su could answer, Commander Hyun Woo spoke up. "Tell them that Earth is ready to join the Galactic community, he said, firmly tell them that we offer our friendship to those who treat us with respect and our strength to defend against those who threaten peace. The news of what had happened spread through the Galactic Federation faster than light-speed communication could carry it. Within days, every civilized planet in the galaxy had heard the story of the small human soldier who had killed a Vorthak general with his bare hands. Earth went from being considered too primitive to notice